Welcome to Talent Takeover
Unfiltered.
When it comes to working hard and keeping it real, we know our shit. Self-care, happiness, inner peace, and time. I'm Brianna Rooney, and this is Taylor Bradley.
Hey, y'all.
And we have thrived in chaos and turned it into an art form. So Taylor, what are we doing here today?
We're here to give you a raw, under-the-hood view of all things recruiting and finally give credit where credit is due to a long underrated industry that's full of quote-unquote experts.
All right. Well, then let's take this show to the road. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talent Takeover Unfiltered. We just had a funny moment. So, of course, now you can watch this on the Millionaire Recruiter YouTube channel. But we were, in pose mode. Ta-da! So we have a guest today. And, of course, Taylor, what's up? We have Michael Kascsak here, and we're going to talk about how to overcome adversity when so much is out of your control. And I know this is a very relatable subject right now. So welcome. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Excited to have you on. Yeah, so I'm dying to know what made you pick this subject.
Yeah, I recently went through, I was one of the 12,000 that were impacted by the Google layoffs. And, I've been a lifelong career-long TA professional. And this was the first time that I had been laid off. Working in a company like Google, you sometimes attach yourself to the company and you become that persona. And so, when it happened, it was tough. And so I feel really good about the process that I put myself through. And I feel like I have handled it in a way that I'm proud of. And so I wanted to share, especially to be vulnerable and say, it sucked. It was, I still remember to this day, logging on and access denied. And I had read some articles before. I have a routine in the morning where go on CNBC and I, read Google layoffs. And as soon as I saw access denied, I was like, holy shit, I just got laid off.
So that's how you found out.
That's how I found out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember talking to myself and saying, okay, this is what happened. It is time to process this and make sure that you are getting yourself in the right mindset. There's nothing I can do right now that's going to change this outcome, but I just got dealt a really, really shitty hand, but I can still control how I play that hand. And so I went into this mindset of, okay, I'm going to give myself 24 hours of why me, what the hell just happened, all of that stuff. I'll kick the curb for a little bit, but 24 hours. And after that, it's time to get my mind right and start to channel my emotions in a way that I'm going to be proud of when I look back, because a lot of people get caught up in the emotion of what's going on and they forget that you're setting you're still in this mode of your character is how you're defined, not your job, not your job title, not like your character, whether that's good times or bad times, your character has to stay in a place that you're proud of. And so I just kept, thinking back. I became my own therapist. I was like, all right, you have to look back on this process. You have to look back on this situation and be proud of how you handled it. And so, definitely, it was one of the most difficult things I've been through in my career.
Yeah, sure.
But, I just looked at it as a challenge. I looked at it as something that, it was new, it was different. And in a weird way, I embraced it. And I said, all right, I'm going to beat this, and I'm not going to let this control, the next chapter or how I go about finding that next opportunity. And so, it's, adversity, we all go through it. We all do.
100%.
There is not one person that doesn't go through it. Some people go through it in public. Some people go through it private. Some people go through it personally, careers, all of the above.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to remember that you're not special because you're going through adversity. No one is, you're not alone.
Yeah.
But how you handle it is the most important part.
It's how it defines you. And I love that. So just a couple of ways so for the listeners here is, first of all, time, like you gave yourself a time limit. So it's like, yes, grieve,
Love that.
whine,
Yes.
feel woe is me, all of those
Yes.
things. But this is how long you can do it for.
Yep.
Because, I think a lot of people are like, hey, crying is looked at as you're weak, or,
Yeah.
all those things. It's not. It's you're
Yeah.
accepting your emotions so you can move forward. It's actually not processing it is weak.
Yes, exactly. And I found some good sounding boards. I found some people that were in my inner circle that I could vent and that I could, talk to about how I was feeling in a very raw way. And I trusted them. And so, it allowed me to get all of that out within that time period so then I can channel my emotions and channel my energy toward positive things.
Yeah. And that's remaining in a positive mindset, which, by the way, it's its own separate ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, we, like I said, we all go through stuff and, it's some is harder than others, but how you handle it and the mindset that you keep yourself in it's important to keep your mind sharp and to, stay on top of your game no matter what.
Yeah. So a question for you. So did going through this experience that you've gone through, I've obviously looked at your, like Jess said, we were stalking you. So I've seen your background, very impressive background. Did going through this process, did it change the way you would approach any situation? I'm trying to be really vague here, but any situation moving forward, did it change your perception? Did it change the companies that you'd like to work for moving forward? Did anything change having been experience what you did, the way you did, access denied, all of that? Like,
Yeah.
did any of that change for you?
That's a great question. Wow, that is a really great question. I would say what changed is I am so much more aware now of, and I've unfortunately been on the other side, and I've always been empathetic, and I've always wanted to make sure that anybody that works for me, with me, that I care deeply about them. But it really did change my perception of what the other person is truly going through. And it's funny because I've been trained well in my career, and as an HR professional, you're taught, the laws and the policies and the guardrails that you stay in. To be honest with you, if I feel like I've widened those guardrails now because there is more empathy that needs to be given. There is, now I'm in the scenario of I'm looking for my next opportunity. And so as a candidate, I am eyes wide open as to the experience that I'm getting and talking to some of these companies. And I have run the gamut as far as some amazing conversations and people to some really like lackluster, just poor execution, poor communication. And so it's really allowed me to take a step back and do an inventory of, okay, all of that training, all of those laws and policies and everything that I've been through, is there tweaks that I need to make? And the answer is yes. You cannot be empathetic enough. You really have to meet people where they are, and you have to understand where they are in particular. It's not a one size fits all. And so, it's allowed me to, really take a deep understanding of that. So great question. I'm super glad I had to think through that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I've been through a layoff before. It was obviously like just a long time ago and not what people are experiencing right now. So I consider myself fortunate, but I think when you go through things like that, it changes you a little bit. And so I was just curious to know I would hope that it would change anybody, and it would change the way that you approach people, your perspective. And I think what you said just gave me chills of meeting people with where they're at, like where they're at. You cannot have enough empathy. I thought that was really powerful. Because I think oftentimes when you haven't been in those situations for a while, you can think you're empathetic, but until you feel it and you go through it yourself, to say exactly to your point, you can't have enough empathy for people that are in that situation.
Exactly.
So, go ahead, Brianna.
No, yeah. So you said something that really resonates with me. So how you said you attached yourself, your identity, your success to a company, and I also before I had techies, my license plate was techies, right? So when I sold techies, I was like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I had to move forward. I had to move on. I haven't, other companies, other employees, colleagues, stuff like that. And so how do you moving forward in your next opportunity, how do you not attach your success and
Yeah.
identity?
Wow. You guys, great questions. You guys come
Sorry.
strong.
Bam, bam,
No, this is awesome. I love it. No, I love it.
bam.
So first of all, it is so easy to fall into that. When you join a company and you get the swag and you hear the value props, and especially as a recruiter, you're selling your company, and you get
Yeah.
lulled into this romantic relationship with
Mhm.
your company. And it's important to realize that especially public traded companies, it's not your company. You work for that company. And
Mhm.
you'll hear some people within the company say the word family. To me, I that's where I would stop short. And I know that that may sound, cliche or whatever, but and it's really easy to say, oh, we're all one big family. It it's not. Like, my family is on a whole other echelon. They are they are the number one priority in my life. The company that I work for will be a priority, but it will not pale in comparison to how I feel about my family. And so what I would say is I you have to consciously go through all of that and remember that, hey, this is my work. And yes, I could like the hell out of my company. You could even love your company, but there is a line that you have to stay conscious of, and you have to understand that it is a business. And I will again fully admit, whenever I was offered the opportunity to work for Google, it was a proud moment. And I got my Noogler hat, and my family was I was so proud that I worked for Google, and what a great brand. And
Yeah.
yes, it's still, it's a great company, but it again, looking back on it, I think I let that define me too much. And if I had to do it all over again, I think I would have been more in like with the organization. And this isn't just Google, this is PayPal and Capital One. I mean, amazing companies. I would have been in total like, but I would have known where kind of those boundaries are. And again, it doesn't change how I work. It doesn't change the passion that I have for my job.
Hmm.
It just keeps me grounded. It keeps my priorities in order.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to do. And to when I use the word conscious, it really has to be. It has to be, because
Mm.
you can get romanticized so easily, because as a recruiter, that's what you do. You're selling your company, you're selling the opportunity, and you're seeing the best parts of your company, and you're sharing them with everyone. And so you can get caught.
Mm. That is
Yeah.
like, I hear you, I feel you, and I agree, but that is like seems almost near impossible. I mean, I know
It's
nothing's
hard.
impossible, but what's I'm just kind of like having those little moments. I'm like, God, but you spend way more time with your
Yeah.
family, your colleagues, and I mean, our company's small, so it's like we
Yeah.
do get very involved and invested, and we
Yeah.
feel like a part of the team because God, it's like I talk to my family like once every 3 weeks or so,
Yeah.
depending on the member and stuff like that, and yeah, and so it's really easy to romanticize all of that.
Yeah, and here I'll give you an example of just how I exercised it in my head. And coincidentally, today is my daughter's 8th birthday. And
Happy birthday,
I've
Paul.
yeah,
Birthday.
her name's Giada. She is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so what I've always thought about is I've had some great job titles in my career. I've been very fortunate. But the one title that I will always have, that you will never be able to take away from me, that's the most important, is dad.
Yeah.
And so that is what I mean by just making sure that you don't lose your identity through a company
Sure. Okay.
and through
Yeah.
through that job title. The title of dad and husband is something that is, again, completely. I just that is the number one priority, and something that'll never be taken away
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you related it to that, now I totally understand where you're coming from because I was thinking my brother, sister, mom, dad, stuff like that. Like I guess on a wider spectrum. But when you talk about the kids, I'm like, oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, there's a responsibility and an emotion that it's hard to explain.
Mhm.
And so that's the separation. At least for me, that's the separation.
Yeah.
It's really, like Branda said, it seems so impossible. Especially I think about like us working here, we're so small, we talk to each other all day, every day. But the reality is like you can love a business, can love a company, but it doesn't love you back, you know? And
Yep.
it's not the people that work in the company that don't love you back necessarily, but
Exactly.
if economic conditions or if the business, if you decide to close or whatever, sell, whatever the case is, that's where I say it doesn't love you back. Like there's so many factors that can influence whether you're still working for that company or not that have nothing to do with the people in the company,
That's a great point, Taylor. I mean, whenever I talk to my former boss and some of my former colleagues, you know, they're distraught about everybody that was impacted. And you're right, they're not in control. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of times it's the investors, it's the shareholders, it's people that are so far out of your control that are dictating the direction of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Michael, you cut out for a little bit. If you could just say that one more time and we'll go.
Yeah, no, I was saying, there are a lot of times where, you have to understand what is in control. So I talked with my former boss and my former colleagues at Google, and they were distraught at all of the people that were impacted. And it was horrible, but it wasn't in their control. And a lot of times it's in the control of the investors, the shareholders, and people that are, way outside of your threshold of control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how, again, are you overcoming that of what's out of your control? Because in my mind, I'm just thinking that's emotional intelligence, right? You're not triggered by other people.
Yeah.
You take responsibility for how you react and how you respond. But it's easier said than done. So what kind of tips do you have?
So first things first is, I talked earlier about, having that inner circle. Make sure that you have people that you trust and that you can share your raw emotions with, and they're not going to judge you, and they're going to either give you good advice when you want it, or they're just going to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to be careful on who you talk to. I mean, LinkedIn is a great example. It has become just this, it's almost a morgue for recruiting, not like the layout. I mean, it's so depressing to go on there and see such amazing talent. I mean, these are people that they're victims of circumstance. Again, these layoffs that have been happening in tech, victims of circumstance. And so to see what they're all going through and they're venting, and again, for each their own. But to me, you have to know who your audience is when you start to get raw, because you want to hear back from people that they know you, they know what's going on inside of you and what you're thinking. And so yeah, I mean, you have to have that inner circle. And it's important, like I said, be your own therapist, talk yourself through what is actually happening, and don't overthink anything. I'm an overthinker, and I got some really great advice, and I don't want to, I want to make sure that I don't take credit for this, but I had the opportunity to meet I forget the title that they use, but he was basically the mental performance, in charge of mental performance for the Tampa Bay Rays, Major League Baseball team. And he gave me some really, really good advice, because we were talking about, a baseball player, most of the time that they go up to bat, they fail. Getting a hit 3 out of 10 times is considered amazing. So how do you prepare them for failing? And how do you get them mentally prepared to go into scenarios like that and to perform at that level? And one of the things he said to me really resonated. He said, every time you think about something negative that could happen, immediately you have to incorporate the complete opposite that could happen. So if you're thinking, wow, maybe I'm going to go strike out, think, no, okay, I'm going to go hit a home run this at bat. Or, so anytime you get in a scenario where something you're overthinking on the negative side, do the opposite and think about what could happen if the absolute positive happened. And then what you do is you kind of create this spectrum and aim for the middle of the spectrum. And,
Yeah.
I've always tried to find that middle ground. Another great piece of advice is, when something amazing happens, yes, celebrate it, be happy, but be careful not to go too far high, not to go too high, because, and the same applies when something low happens.
Yeah.
Yes, it sucks. You get down, but be careful not to go too low. Try to stay in that, you're going to have your bumps. You're going to have your bumps up and down, but try to stay within that, that realm of the middle ground, so that you're not constantly on this roller coaster ride of everything is perfect. Oh my gosh, everything is horrible. Everything, like, it's exhausting if you get on that ride. And so, those are a couple of things that I think through, and I just stay top of mind when going through things like this.
Mm-hmm. Go.
I was going to say, I love what you said about the middle of the spectrum, because I think it's like, there's optimists, there's pessimists, and then I feel like there's realists, and I feel like I'm kind of that person in the middle. That's how, but some people perceive it as like, I'm kind of pessimistic because I'm always like, oh, I'm not going to celebrate that yet till it's real. But I think that's such good advice of like, don't get too high, don't get too low. Try to stay somewhere in the middle. Try to stay just realistic. And I think I love what you said, that whatever the title was, which is actually an interesting title. The Tampa Rays coach said,
Tampa Bay Rays, the mental performance.
That's crazy. I love that they have a coach for that, which is also fascinating to me that they have a coach for that. But I didn't even know that existed. But I think that, everything that we do is mental, right? It's driven by that. And I think that's really, really good advice of like, don't go too high, don't go too low, realistic. So you talked a lot about the process that you put yourself through, the 24 hours to really grieve, to think about what happened. So then what do you do from there? You said you talk to people in your network, then kind of give us the steps of what your process has been.
This is kind of I think my overarching comment, which is, you be yourself. You let things happen naturally and organically. And so when you start to network, when you start to talk with people, and you are yourself, and you're honest, and you're transparent, then what you see is, you find, whether it's the next career opportunity, the next whatever it is that you're searching for, you want that to meet you while you're moving towards that in a very organic way. If you try to force things to work, if you try to control everything, it's going to become counterproductive. I have seen it time and time again, especially with job seekers. They'd go in and they will either read a job description, or they'll talk to somebody, and they're immediately thinking, okay, I want to become this job description. What can I say? What can I do that makes me look like this job description? Or what does this person want me to say in this scenario? And what you're creating is this false marriage of, there are a lot of people that get into a job and they're like, oh my God, I hate it. I can't believe, why did I take this job? And if you do a postmortem, go back and were you your authentic self? Were you honest and truthful about what your passions are, what you like, what your non-negotiables are? And if you compromise too much, you're going to end up in a scenario that's unhealthy for you, unhealthy for the employer, unhealthy for the relationship that you're in. And so, a lot of it is just letting things happen naturally. And I am not a patient person. I am a very, very impatient person. And a lot of
company.
Exactly. And so it's really hard to be patient, but you have to know when you are done controlling everything that you can control, and then let the rest of the process take its course. And, whether you're on an interview, whether you're networking, you do everything that you can to control and share what you have to offer, but the rest has to be up to someone else. And you have to be willing to give that control up and let it happen. And if it's a no, if it's a, not this time, you've got to then go back and start that process all over again. And it is so much easier said than done, but that's how it works. And if you try to force it, I promise it's going to be counterproductive.
Agreed. I think people force things because they become desperate.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the really hard part. Again, easier said than done. You know,
Yeah.
I have this bill, I have this kids, I'm a single parent, whatever the
Yeah.
situation is, right? You know, living paycheck to paycheck, and you start to feel. And
Yeah.
so we have to train. And I think that's just why recruiting is just so powerful. And we don't talk about it a lot, but we're career therapists at that point, right?
Yes.
So we are
Yes.
trying to, on the other side, and this is where empathy comes into play, and trying to coach them through it. But if you believe in, like, you know, manifesting the universe, and, like, you know,
Yeah.
it all kind of corrects itself, and the positive mindset can set you free, then I agree. You can be your authentic self. And I think people are just scared. One, they're scared because maybe someone won't like their authentic self, right?
Yeah.
But if, yeah, you put yourself out there, and you don't put such, you know, heavy pressures on, again, easier said than done, then I think you can really find not just your next career and home, right? Technically,
Yeah.
then you can really find something that you just rock, you know? And I think
Yes.
that's when it becomes really brilliant and become really happy, and all of those things. It's just, you got to let it live, let it lie.
Exactly.
hard.
100%. 100%.
Mm, I like that.
It's really hard. All right, guys. Well, we're coming up on time.
Ah,
So
ready.
you want to hit them
Wow.
with the broke to bust it? Yeah, it goes
Yeah,
by so fast.
I'll be redundant to what I just said, but I'll add a little bit more flavor to it around, you know, just being. There's something really powerful about being yourself and sharing your beliefs and being transparent with people. You find out who you find out who your matches are. You find out who that puzzle piece that comes together. And I don't mean you find somebody that is identical to you. I always use the analogy of the puzzle pieces. When I put a team together, I look for, you know, I play to people's strengths, and I look for people that can help overlap the opportunities that other people have. And that's how you build a team. And so in order for that to happen, you have to rely on people to be their authentic selves. And so, you know, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for a spouse, whether you're looking for a friend, if you just share what's in your mind and what's in your heart and be yourself, you're going to find those puzzle pieces are going to connect, and they're going to connect really well. And so, you know, I've tried to live my life that way. And, you know, when I find myself maybe moving away from who I am, I try, you got to catch yourself, and you have to course correct, because it's so easy to, oh, you know, I want to hang out with this group, or ooh, that employer, wow, that job looks amazing. But that doesn't fit my DNA. And so I have to remember that, you know, I can't get caught up in the shiny new toy, or, you know, whatever that may be, because it's not going to bring out the best part of me. And so, you know, just be yourself and let things happen organically. And, you know, as impatient as we can be, you know, you have to bake in some patience.
And that comes with journaling as
Great
well.
advice.
Yeah.
Journal, people. Because it's hard. Gosh, Michael, thank you so much. Of course, I have to off air attack just the sorcerer DNA inside you, because I'm so curious on that. So maybe we'll bring you on again.
For sure,
listeners.
would love to come on again.
But thank you. I mean, this is just going to help, you know. And again, it's not even just to help with layoffs. It's just how you overcome adversity with things out of your control is such a heavy subject for so many different people, and it's so relatable in so many different ways. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So much. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Bye. See you next Tuesday.